What is the price of compassion in war? On October 12, 1943, in a field hospital hidden in the forests of occupied Belgium, French nurse Sister Marie Durant faced an impossible choice. 6 wounded German soldiers, enemies, invaders, men whose comrades had murdered her neighbors, lay bleeding on stretchers outside her makeshift hospital. Her fellow resistance members stood with rifles, ready to execute them. "They're Nazis," they said. "Let them die." But Marie saw only human beings in pain. She made a decision that would save 6 lives and cost her own. For 3 months, she secretly treated wounded soldiers from both sides, Allied and Axis, friend and enemy, because her oath as a nurse recognized no flags, only suffering. She believed healing transcended politics, that humanity survived even in the darkest wars. The Gestapo discovered what she was doing. They called it treason. On January 15, 1944, they stood her against a wall and shot her. Marie Durant was 32 years old. If you want to understand what it means to choose humanity over hatred, subscribe now. This is the true story of the nurse who treated the enemy and paid with her life. Marie Céleste Durant was born on May 3, 1911, in a small village outside Brussels, Belgium. The daughter of a country doctor who believed medicine was a calling, not a profession. She grew up watching her father treat everyone who came to his door, rich, poor, Belgian immigrant, criminal, saint. He never asked about money or morality, only about pain. "A doctor treats the illness, not the person," he told young Marie. "The moment you judge your patient, you've failed your oath." Marie absorbed that lesson like gospel. She trained as a nurse at the Catholic Hospital of Brussels, graduating in 1933 with honors. She could have worked anywhere. Prestigious hospitals in Paris or London offered positions. But Marie chose to stay in Belgium, working in rural clinics where poor farmers couldn't afford proper medical care. When Germany invaded Belgium on May 10, 1940, Marie was 29 years old, working at a small hospital near the French border. The Blitzkrieg was brutal. Panzer divisions smashing through defenses, Luftwaffe bombers destroying cities, refugees flooding roads in desperate escape. The hospital was overrun within days. German officers requisitioned the building for their wounded soldiers. They told Marie and the other nurses, "You will treat German personnel only. Belgian civilians are secondary. Resistance fighters and Allied soldiers are to be reported immediately." Most of the staff fled or were arrested. But Marie stayed, not because she supported the occupation, she despised it, but because wounded men, regardless of uniform, needed someone to care for them. For 3 years, Marie worked under German supervision, treating Wehrmacht soldiers wounded on the Eastern Front, shipped back to Belgium for recovery. She followed orders, saved lives, never complained, but secretly Marie was part of the Belgian resistance. Her hospital sat on an escape route, the Comet Line, that smuggled downed Allied pilots and escaped POWs through occupied Belgium into France, then Spain, then freedom. At night, when the Germans weren't watching, Marie treated wounded resistance fighters in the hospital basement, gave them antibiotics stolen from German supplies, forged medical documents declaring them unfit for labor camps, saved lives the Germans wanted dead. It was dangerous work. Discovery meant execution. But Marie believed some things were worth dying. For what she didn't know was that her greatest test was coming, and it would force her to choose between everything she believed. October 12, 1943, Marie was in the basement hospital treating a British RAF pilot shot down. 3 days earlier, flight burns on his hands, shrapnel in his shoulder. His name was Lieutenant Peter Ashford, 23 years old, terrified the Germans would find him. "How long until I can move?" Peter asked, wincing as Marie changed his bandages. 2 more days. Maybe 3. The infection needs to clear. Gunfire, close, automatic weapons echoing through the forest. Marie froze. Peter reached for a pistol hidden under his blanket. Footsteps pounded above them. The basement door burst open. Jacques Moreau, a resistance fighter Marie had known since childhood, descended the stairs, rifle in hand, face grim. "Marie, we have a problem." They followed him outside. In the clearing behind the hospital lay 6 German soldiers, young, maybe 19 or 20, uniforms torn and blood-soaked. A Wehrmacht transport truck sat abandoned on the forest road, riddled with bullet holes. The resistance had ambushed it. 5 Germans were dead. These 6 were barely alive. Pierre Dubois, the resistance cell leader, stood over them with his rifle. "They're SS, we found the insignia. These bastards probably burned villages on the Eastern Front." Marie knelt beside the closest soldier, sucking chest wound. Without treatment, he'd die in minutes. The next one had lost most of his left leg to shrapnel. The third was unconscious, skull fracture visible. "Marie, don't," Jacques warned. "They're enemies, Nazis." Marie looked at the 6 dying boys, because that's what they were, boys. Barely old enough to shave, and saw only what her father had taught her to see. Human beings in pain. They need immediate surgery. "If I don't operate, they'll all be dead within the hour." Pierre stepped forward, furious. "Good, let them die. They've killed hundreds, thousands. Why should we waste supplies on them?" "Because I'm a nurse," Marie said quietly. "And my oath doesn't ask about uniforms." "Your oath?" Pierre spat. "What about your country? Your people? If you save these Germans and they recover, they'll go back to killing us." Marie stood facing him. "If I let them die when I could save them, I'm no different than they are." Pierre raised his rifle, pointing it at the wounded Germans. "Then I'll make the choice for you." Marie stepped between Pierre's rifle and the wounded Germans. "If you're going to execute them, you'll have to shoot me first." Pierre stared at her, disbelieving. "Marie, these are SS soldiers. Do you understand what that means? They're not regular Wehrmacht. They've murdered civilians, executed prisoners, burned villages. Then let God judge them." Marie interrupted. "I'm a nurse, not an executioner." Jacques touched Pierre's arm. "She's right. If we kill prisoners, we're no better than them." "Prisoners?" Pierre laughed bitterly. "We don't have facilities for prisoners. We can barely feed ourselves. And if the Germans find out we're holding their soldiers, they'll level this entire area." Marie knew he was right. Every point he made was logical, tactical, correct. But logic wasn't what drove her. Mercy was. "Give me 3 days," Marie said. "I'll stabilize them, patch them up enough to survive. Then you can decide what to do. But I won't let them die without trying." Pierre looked at the other resistance fighters. Some nodded reluctantly. Others looked disgusted. Finally, he lowered his rifle. 3 days, Marie. And if the Gestapo comes looking for missing soldiers, their blood is on your hands." Marie and 2 other nurses worked through the night. They moved the Germans into a hidden cellar beneath the hospital, a space usually reserved for hiding Allied pilots. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The surgeries were brutal. Limited anesthesia. Primitive tools. Marie amputated the leg of the soldier with shrapnel wounds, knowing he'd never fight again. She drained fluid from the chest cavity of another, her hands shaking from exhaustion. By dawn, all 6 were alive. Barely. Lieutenant Ashford, the British pilot, watched from the shadows as Marie worked. "You're insane," he whispered. "Those men would kill you without hesitation if the roles were reversed." Marie cleaned blood from her hands. "Probably. But I'm not them. And if I become them, if I start deciding who deserves to live based on which side they're on, then this war has already won. It's turned me into something I'm not. A killer? No," Marie said quietly. "Something worse. Someone who stopped seeing people as people." For 2 weeks, Marie secretly treated both the British pilot and the 6 German soldiers, fed them from the same stolen supplies, changed their bandages with the same hands, prayed over them with the same prayers, and that's when the Gestapo informant saw something he shouldn't have. His name was Henri Lemaire, a local farmer who'd lost his son to a German bombing raid in 1940. He'd been helping the resistance for 3 years, providing food, hiding weapons, keeping watch. But grief turns people into ghosts of themselves. On October 28, 1943, Henri was delivering vegetables to the hospital when he saw something through the basement window. Marie Durant, changing bandages on a German soldier. He watched for 20 minutes, saw her treat 5 more, saw her laugh at something one of them said in broken French, laughing with Germans, with the men who'd killed his boy. Henri walked 7 miles to the nearest Gestapo office and told them everything. The Gestapo came at dawn on November 1st. 20 soldiers. 2 trucks led by Hauptsturmführer Klaus Richter, a man known for his efficiency in rooting out resistance cells. They surrounded the hospital. Kicked indoors. Found the basement. Marie was changing bandages on one of the German soldiers. a boy named Friedrich, who'd told her about his family's bakery in Munich, how he'd been conscripted at 17 and never wanted to fight. Richter descended the stairs, pistol drawn, and stopped when he saw the scene. 6 recovering German soldiers, 1 British pilot, and a French nurse treating them all equally. Sister Durant, Richter said in perfect French. You are under arrest for treason against the Reich. I'm a nurse, Marie replied calmly. I treat the wounded. All wounded. You harbored enemy combatants. He pointed at Lieutenant Ashford. And you stole German medical supplies to treat them? I stole nothing. I used what was available to save lives. Richter walked to Friedrich, the young German soldier. This man is Wehrmacht, yes? You treated him? I did. And this British terrorist? He's a pilot. Shot down, wounded. I treated him too. Richter's face showed something between admiration and disgust. You don't see the contradiction? You save our soldiers, then save the enemy who tries to kill them. Marie met his eyes. I see human beings in pain. Nothing else matters. Everything else matters, Richter said coldly. You are not a humanitarian. You are a traitor. He signaled his men. Arrest her. Arrest everyone in this hospital. The pilots, the resistance members. Execute the British immediately. Marie was dragged upstairs while Lieutenant Ashford screamed her name. The last thing she saw before they threw her into the truck was Friedrich, the German boy she'd saved, watching with tears streaming down his face. Knowing he could do nothing, they held Marie in a Gestapo prison in Brussels for 2 months. Solitary confinement, interrogations, no torture. Richter was too calculated for that. He wanted a public trial, a message to anyone thinking of helping the resistance. On January 10, 1944, they brought Marie before a German military tribunal. The courtroom was packed. German officers, Belgian collaborators, journalists. The Reich wanted this documented. Richter presented the evidence methodically. Testimony from Henri Lemaire, photographs of the basement hospital, lists of supplies Marie had stolen from Wehrmacht stocks, affidavits from the 6 German soldiers confirming she'd treated them after the resistance ambush. The accused deliberately harbored enemy combatants, Richter stated. She diverted German medical resources to aid Allied terrorists. She violated her duty to the occupying authority. The punishment for such treason is death. The judge, a German colonel named Weber, looked at Marie. Do you deny these charges? No, Marie said calmly. I treated wounded soldiers. All of them, including enemies of the Reich, including human beings who were suffering. Weber leaned forward. You understand you were obligated to report Allied soldiers to German authorities? I was obligated to heal the sick and wounded. My oath as a nurse supersedes any political authority. Your oath? Weber's voice hardened. You swore loyalty to Belgium, which is now under German administration. You betrayed that administration, Marie stood. I betrayed no one. I saved lives. German lives, Allied lives, civilian lives. If healing is treason, then your definition of loyalty is broken. The courtroom erupted. German officers shouted. Weber slammed his gavel. Richter approached Marie. Tell me, Sister Durant, if we release you, would you do it again? Would you continue treating enemy soldiers? Marie didn't hesitate. Yes, even knowing it means death, especially knowing that. Because the moment I stop seeing enemies as human beings worth saving, I've lost the only thing that makes me different from you. Richter smiled coldly. Then you've sentenced yourself. The verdict came 30 minutes later. Guilty. Sentence, death by firing squad. Execution date, January 15th, 1944. 5 days away. They returned Marie to her cell. That night, one of the guards, a young German named Hans, who'd been treated by Marie months earlier for pneumonia, slipped a letter under her door. It was from Friedrich, the German. Marie unfolded Friedrich's letter with trembling hands and read by moonlight filtering through her cell window. Sister Durant, I don't know if this will reach you. They told me you are to be executed for saving my life. I am so sorry. I have tried to speak to my commanders, to explain that you saved 6 German soldiers, that you are not a traitor, but a healer. They don't care. They say you helped the enemy, so you must die. I am a coward because I cannot save you the way you saved me. All I can do is tell you this. Because of you, I will never see war the same way again. You showed me that humanity survives even here, even now. I will carry that for the rest of my life. I'm sorry it cost you yours. Friedrich. Marie folded the letter carefully and placed it against her heart. She'd succeeded. Even one soldier, one enemy, understood. That was enough. January 15th, 1944, dawned cold and gray. They came for Marie at 6 a.m., 2 guards, expressionless. They walked her through the prison courtyard, where a stone wall waited, pockmarked from previous executions. A firing squad of 8 German soldiers stood at attention. Marie recognized 2 of them, men she'd treated for dysentery months ago. They wouldn't meet her eyes. Hauptsturmführer Richter was there, official witness to justice being served. But so was someone unexpected, Friedrich. The young German soldier stood at the edge of the courtyard, tears streaming down his face, forbidden from interfering but refusing to look away. A priest approached Marie. "Do you wish to confess?" "I have nothing to confess," Marie said gently. "I saved lives. If that's a sin, then God and I will have an interesting conversation." They offered to blindfold her. She refused. "I want to see their faces. I want them to see mine." They positioned her against the wall. No post to tie her to. She stood freely, hands at her sides, looking at the 8 men who would kill her. Richter read the formal death sentence. Then he turned to the firing squad. "Ready," Marie spoke. Her voice carried across the silent courtyard. "I forgive you." Several soldiers flinched. One lowered his rifle slightly, then raised it again. "Aim." Marie thought about her father, about the oath she'd taken, about Peter Ashford, the British pilot who'd survived, about Friedrich watching from the shadows, about every life she'd saved, German and Allied and civilian. She thought about the 6 German boys she'd treated against all logic, all advice, all common sense. And she knew, absolutely knew, she'd made the right choice. Fire. 8 rifles discharged simultaneously. Marie Durant fell against the stone wall and slid to the ground, dead before she hit the earth. She was 32 years old. They buried her in an unmarked grave. The Germans wanted her forgotten, but some stories refused to die with their heroes. Friedrich deserted 3 weeks later. He walked away from his unit, surrendered to Allied forces, and spent the rest of the war in a POW camp. When interrogators asked why he'd deserted, he handed them the letter Marie had inspired him to write, a testimony about a nurse who'd saved his life and changed his soul. After the war, Friedrich returned to his family's bakery in Munich. Every year on January 15th, he closed the shop, lit a candle, and told his children about Sister Marie Durant, the woman who taught him that mercy transcends war. Lieutenant Peter Ashford, the British pilot, survived the war. In 1947, he traveled to Belgium searching for Marie's grave. It took him 3 months to find it. He placed a marker there, carved with words from the Hippocratic Oath. First, do no harm. But the most extraordinary thing happened in 1946. During the Nuremberg trials, Colonel Weber, the judge who'd sentenced Marie, was captured and put on trial for war crimes. During his testimony, prosecutors presented evidence of dozens of executions he'd ordered. Weber sat silently through most of it. Then they asked about Marie Durant. Weber, this hardened Nazi officer who'd sent hundreds to their deaths, broke down. "She was the only person I ever sentenced who made me question what I was doing. She looked at me during the trial, not with hatred or fear, but with pity, as if she felt sorry for me. And I realized, she did. She pitied us because we'd lost our humanity, and she hadn't." Weber was convicted and hanged in 1947, but his testimony about Marie Durant was published in newspapers across the world. The nurse who'd been executed in obscurity became a symbol of something more powerful than any army: the refusal to let war destroy compassion. In 1948, the Belgian government posthumously awarded Marie the Croix de Guerre. In 1958, they erected a statue in her village, a nurse with outstretched hands treating a soldier whose uniform shows no nationality. The inscription reads, "Marie Durant. She healed all who suffered," because suffering knows no side. But the real legacy wasn't the medals or monuments. It was the 6 German soldiers she'd saved who went home and never raised their hands in violence again. It was Friedrich's children, who grew up believing mercy was stronger than revenge. It was Peter Ashford who became a doctor after the war, inspired by the nurse who'd risked everything to save him. It was the ripple effect of one woman who chose humanity over hatred, knowing it would cost her life but believing some things were worth dying for. Marie's father had taught her, a doctor treats the illness, not the person. But Marie understood something deeper. She treated the person, not the uniform. She saw souls, not soldiers. And in doing so, she proved that even in the darkest war in human history, light could still exist. The Gestapo killed Marie Durant, but they couldn't kill what she represented. They couldn't execute mercy. They couldn't destroy the truth that every human life, enemy or ally, German or British, Nazi or resistance fighter, has worth. Marie knew she was going to die when she